Right now, at this very moment, you are living someone else's life. You think you're making your own choices, pursuing your own goals, building your own future. But the devastating truth is that you've abandoned yourself so completely that you don't even recognize it anymore. You wake up every day focused on everyone else's needs, everyone else's opinions, everyone else's expectations, while the most important person in your life, you, gets whatever scraps of attention are left over. This isn't just about being busy or overwhelmed. This is about something far more dangerous. You have systematically trained yourself to believe that focusing on yourself is selfish, that putting your own growth first is wrong, that caring about your own development is somehow less important than pleasing others. And that belief is destroying you from the inside out. But here's what's about to change everything. The most successful, most fulfilled, most powerful people in the world have one thing in common. They made a decision that most people will never make. They decided that they are their number one priority. Not in a narcissistic way, not in a way that ignores others, but in a way that recognizes a fundamental truth. You cannot give what you do not have. Today, you're going to learn how to rebuild yourself from the ground up. How to make your focus on yourself not just a daily habit, but a complete life transformation. By the time we're done, you'll understand why this single shift in focus is the difference between living an average life and creating something extraordinary. Chapter 1. The self-abandonment epidemic that's destroying your life. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. When was the last time you spent an entire day focused purely on your own growth, your own goals, your own dreams, without feeling guilty about it? When was the last time you said no to someone else's request because you had something more important to do for yourself? When was the last time you chose your own priorities over someone else's expectations? If you're struggling to answer these questions, you're not alone. You are part of what I call the self-abandonment epidemic, and it is the single most destructive force in modern life. Millions of people are walking around completely disconnected from themselves, living their lives in service to everyone except the person who matters most. Here's how it happens. From the moment you're born, you're conditioned to seek external validation. As a child, you learn that love and approval come when you make others happy. You get praise when you're good, attention when you perform, affection when you meet expectations. Slowly, systematically, you learn that your worth is tied not to who you are, but to how well you serve others. This conditioning becomes so deep, so automatic, that by the time you're an adult, you don't even realize you're doing it. You wake up in the morning and immediately start thinking about what everyone else needs. Your boss, your family, your friends, your social media followers. You structure your entire day around external demands, external deadlines, external expectations, and somewhere in the chaos of serving everyone else, you disappear. But here's the part that will shock you. This isn't just about time management or being overwhelmed. This is about identity destruction. When you constantly focus on everyone else, you literally lose touch with who you are. Your dreams become fuzzy. Your goals become unclear. Your sense of self becomes so diluted that you start defining yourself entirely by your relationships to others. You become someone's employee, someone's parent, someone's friend, but you stop being you. The psychological damage of this is devastating. When you abandon yourself, you create what psychologists call learned helplessness. You become so accustomed to reacting to external demands that you lose your ability to create from within. You stop trusting your own judgment. You stop believing in your own dreams. You start living your life on autopilot, going through the motions without any real sense of purpose or direction. And here's the cruelest part of all. The more you focus on everyone else, the less you have to give. When you neglect your own growth, your own health, your own development, you become a depleted version of yourself. You show up to relationships, to work, to life itself, running on empty. You think you're being generous by putting everyone else first. But in reality, you're cheating them out of the best version of yourself. This is why so many people feel stuck, frustrated, and unfulfilled despite working harder than ever. They're pouring all their energy into external achievements while their internal foundation crumbles. They're building lives that look successful from the outside but feel empty from the inside. They're winning everyone else's approval while losing their own soul. The self-abandonment epidemic is not just a personal problem. It's a cultural disease that keeps people small, keeps them controllable, keeps them dependent on external validation instead of developing internal strength. And the only cure is to make a decision that will feel radical, uncomfortable, and completely against everything you've been taught. You must decide that you are your most important project. Chapter 2. The shocking science of self-focus and why your brain needs it to survive. Your brain is not designed to constantly focus on others. This might sound harsh, but it's a biological fact, backed by decades of neuroscience research. Your nervous system, your cognitive functions, your emotional regulation, all of these critical systems require regular self-focused attention to function properly. When you chronically neglect this need, you're not just being selfless, you're literally damaging your brain. Let me explain what happens neurologically when you abandon self-focus. Your brain has what scientists call the default mode network, a collection of brain regions that become active when you're not focused on external tasks. This network is responsible for self-reflection, processing experiences, consolidating memories, and planning for the future. It's essentially your brain's way of maintaining and updating your sense of self. When you constantly focus outward, constantly react to external demands, constantly prioritize others over yourself, you suppress this default mode network. You rob your brain of the downtime it needs to process, to integrate, to grow. The result is what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where you're always slightly distracted, always slightly overwhelmed, always slightly disconnected from yourself. But here's where it gets really dangerous. When your default mode network is chronically suppressed, your brain starts to lose its ability to distinguish between your own thoughts and external influences. You become more susceptible to other people's emotions, other people's stress, other people's opinions. You start absorbing the energy around you instead of generating your own. You become what psychologists call an emotional sponge, constantly taking on the feelings and problems of others while losing touch with your own inner state. The research on this is absolutely clear. People who regularly engage in self-focused activities like meditation, journaling, or simply spending time alone show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive function, decision-making, and self-control. They also show decreased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, which means they're less reactive, less anxious, and more emotionally stable. On the other hand, people who chronically neglect self-focus show the opposite pattern. Their prefrontal cortex becomes less active, meaning they struggle with decision-making and self-control. Their amygdala becomes hyperactive, meaning they're constantly in a state of stress and reactivity. They literally rewire their brains for external dependency and internal chaos. This is why so many people feel like they're losing themselves. They actually are. Every day that you prioritize external focus over internal development, you're training your brain to be less self-aware, less self-directed, and less capable of independent thought. You're becoming neurologically dependent on external validation and external direction. But here's the incredible part. The moment you start prioritizing self-focus, your brain begins to change. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, means that you can literally rebuild your neural pathways to support self-awareness, self-direction, and internal strength. You can train your brain to be your ally instead of your enemy. Studies show that just 20 minutes of daily self-focused activity can begin to reverse years of self-abandonment. Your default mode network becomes more active. Your prefrontal cortex strengthens. Your amygdala calms down. You start thinking more clearly, feeling more stable, and making decisions from a place of internal wisdom rather than external pressure. This isn't just about feeling better. This is about cognitive enhancement. When you focus on yourself regularly, you literally become smarter, more creative, and more capable. Your brain operates at a higher level because it's no longer constantly overwhelmed by external demands. You start seeing solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, possibilities instead of limitations. The science is undeniable. Self-focus isn't selfish, it's essential. Your brain needs it to function properly. Your nervous system requires it to stay balanced. Your cognitive abilities depend on it to operate at their peak. When you make focusing on yourself a daily priority, you're not just improving your life. You're optimizing your biology for success. Chapter 3. How external validation addiction is programming you for failure. You have been programmed like a machine, and you don't even know it. Every time you check your phone for likes, every time you seek approval before making a decision, every time you change your behavior to avoid criticism, you are strengthening a neural pathway that makes you weaker, more dependent, and less capable of independent success. You have become addicted to external validation, and this addiction is systematically destroying your ability to build a life on your own terms. Let me show you exactly how this programming works. Every time you receive external validation, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in drug addiction. This creates a reward cycle that makes you crave more validation, more approval, more external confirmation of your worth. But here's the devastating part. The more you rely on external validation, the less capable you become of generating internal validation. Think about this like a muscle. Your self-validation muscle is exactly like any other muscle in your body. If you don't use it, it atrophies. If you constantly rely on others to tell you that you're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, your internal validation system shuts down. You literally lose the ability to feel confident and secure without external input. This is why so many people become validation addicts without even realizing it. They start needing constant reassurance, constant approval, constant feedback to feel okay about themselves. They can't make a decision without consulting others. They can't feel good about their accomplishments unless someone else recognizes them. They can't even know what they want without checking what everyone else thinks they should want. But the real tragedy is what this does to your potential. When you're addicted to external validation, you become a people pleaser by default. You start making decisions based on what will get you approval rather than what will get you results. You choose the safe path, the conventional path, the path that won't upset anyone, even if it means sacrificing your dreams, your goals, your authentic self. This is how external validation addiction programs you for mediocrity. You become so focused on not disappointing others that you guarantee disappointing yourself. You become so concerned with fitting in that you never stand out. You become so invested in being liked that you never become truly respected. And here's the most insidious part. The people whose validation you're seeking don't actually want you to succeed beyond their level. This isn't conscious malice. It's human psychology. People are naturally threatened by others who outgrow them, who achieve more than them, who become more than they are. So when you constantly seek their approval, you're unconsciously asking for permission to stay small. Your family wants you to be successful, but not so successful that you become unrelatable. Your friends want you to grow, but not so much that you outgrow the friendship. Your colleagues want you to do well, but not so well that you make them look bad. When you make their approval your priority, you're essentially asking them to set the ceiling on your life. This is why the most successful people in the world are often misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected by the people around them. They've learned to generate their own validation, to trust their own judgment, to pursue their own vision, regardless of what others think. They've broken free from the external validation trap that keeps most people stuck in average lives. But breaking free from validation addiction isn't just about ignoring others. It's about rebuilding your internal validation system from the ground up. It's about learning to recognize your own progress, celebrate your own victories, and trust your own instincts. It's about developing what psychologists call internal locus of control, the belief that you have the power to influence your own outcomes. When you have strong internal validation, you become unstoppable. You stop making decisions based on fear of judgment. You stop avoiding risks because they might lead to criticism. You stop playing small because it feels safer. You start pursuing what you actually want instead of what you think others want for you. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It means you become selective about whose opinions matter to you. It means you learn to distinguish between constructive criticism from people who want to see you succeed and destructive criticism from people who want to keep you small. It means you develop the confidence to bet on yourself, even when others doubt you. The transformation begins the moment you start paying more attention to your own opinion of yourself than to everyone else's opinion of you. When you start measuring your worth by your own standards instead of external standards. When you start defining success on your own terms instead of society's terms. This is when you stop being a slave to validation and start becoming the master of your own life. Chapter 4. The daily self-audit system that rebuilds your identity from within. Most people go through their entire lives without ever truly knowing themselves. They react to situations based on old patterns, make decisions based on inherited beliefs, and pursue goals based on external expectations, all while having no clear understanding of who they actually are beneath all the conditioning. But there is a way to strip away all the external programming and reconnect with your authentic self. And it starts with a daily practice that will revolutionize how you see yourself and your potential. I call this the daily self-audit system, and it is the most powerful tool I've ever discovered for rebuilding your identity from within. This isn't just about self-reflection or journaling. This is about conducting a systematic examination of your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and results every single day, so you can identify what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. The first component of the daily self-audit is the morning identity check. Before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you interact with anyone, before you start reacting to the world around you, you ask yourself 3 fundamental questions. Who am I today? What do I stand for today? What am I building today? These questions might seem simple, but they are incredibly powerful because they force you to consciously choose your identity instead of just defaulting to old patterns. Most people wake up and immediately slip into autopilot mode, becoming whoever they were yesterday, reacting the same way, making the same choices, following the same patterns. But when you start each day by consciously defining who you are, you take control of your identity instead of letting your identity control you. The second component is the hourly awareness pause. Every hour, on the hour, you stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself, am I acting in alignment with who I said I am this morning? Am I making choices that build the person I want to become? Or am I reverting to old patterns? This isn't about judging yourself or feeling guilty about misalignment. It's about creating conscious awareness of the gap between who you want to be and who you're actually being in real time. This hourly check-in serves 2 critical purposes. First, it prevents you from sleepwalking through your day. Most people spend entire days on autopilot, making unconscious decisions that pull them away from their goals without even realizing it. The hourly pause breaks this unconscious pattern and brings you back to intentional living. Second, it creates multiple opportunities for course correction throughout the day. Instead of waiting until bedtime to realize you've been off track all day, you catch misalignment early and adjust. This compounds over time, creating a life that is increasingly aligned with your authentic self rather than your conditioned patterns. The third component is the evening integration review. At the end of each day, you conduct a thorough examination of your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and results. You ask yourself, what did I learn about myself today? What patterns did I notice? What triggered me, and why? What made me feel most alive and authentic? What felt forced or inauthentic? But here's what makes this different from regular journaling. You're not just recording what happened. You're analyzing the data to identify patterns and make strategic adjustments. You're treating yourself like a scientist studying the most important subject in the world. This evening review helps you understand your emotional patterns, your behavioral triggers, your energy cycles, and your authentic preferences. Over time, you start to see clear patterns that reveal who you really are beneath all the conditioning. You discover what truly motivates you versus what you think should motivate you. You identify your real values versus the values you inherited from others. The fourth component is the weekly identity evolution planning. Every week, You review the data from your daily audits and ask, what patterns am I ready to change? What aspects of my identity need upgrading? What new behaviors do I want to experiment with? This is where you consciously evolve your identity based on what you've learned about yourself. Most people change by accident, slowly drifting toward whoever they spend time with or whatever environment they're in. But when you have a systematic process for examining and evolving your identity, you change by design. You become who you choose to become, rather than who circumstances make you become. The fifth and most crucial component is the monthly authenticity assessment. Once a month, you conduct a deep examination of your entire life to assess how aligned you are with your authentic self. You ask, am I living according to my own values or someone else's? Are my goals actually my goals or goals I think I should have? Am I in relationships that support my authentic self or relationships that require me to be someone I'm not? This monthly assessment often reveals uncomfortable truths. You might realize that you've been pursuing a career that doesn't match your authentic interests. You might discover that you're in relationships that require you to suppress parts of yourself. You might find that you've been living according to expectations that were never really your own. But these uncomfortable realizations are the beginning of real transformation. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't change what you're not aware of. The daily self-audit system creates the awareness necessary for authentic change. When you commit to this system, something profound happens. You stop being a stranger to yourself. You develop an intimate understanding of your patterns, your triggers, your authentic desires, and your genuine potential. You become your own best friend, your own most trusted advisor, your own most reliable guide. This intimate self-knowledge becomes the foundation for everything else. You make better decisions because you understand what truly matters to you. You set better goals because you know what authentically motivates you. You build better relationships because you know who you really are and what you actually need. The daily self-audit system isn't just about self-improvement. It's about self-reclamation. It's about taking back ownership of your identity from all the external forces that have been shaping it without your conscious consent. It's about becoming the author of your own story instead of a character in everyone else's story. Chapter 5. Breaking free from the people-pleasing prison that's killing your dreams. You are living in a prison, and you built it yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you suppress your opinion to avoid conflict, every time you sacrifice your goals to make someone else comfortable, you are adding another bar to the cage that keeps you trapped in a life that isn't really yours. This prison is called people-pleasing, and it is the single most effective way to guarantee that you will never achieve your full potential. People-pleasing feels like kindness, but it's actually a form of self-violence. Every time you betray your authentic self to gain approval, you are teaching your subconscious mind that other people's comfort is more important than your own truth. You are programming yourself to believe that your wants, your needs, your dreams are less valuable than everyone else's. You are systematically erasing yourself to keep others happy. But here's what you need to understand about people-pleasing. It doesn't actually make people happy. It makes them comfortable. And there's a massive difference. When you constantly accommodate others, when you never challenge them, when you never express your authentic opinions or desires, you rob them of the opportunity to know the real you. You create relationships based on a false version of yourself, which means the love and approval you receive isn't actually for you, it's for the mask you wear. This creates a devastating psychological trap. The more you people please, the more isolated you feel, because no one actually knows who you really are. The approval you receive feels hollow because it's not based on your authentic self. So you please even more, hoping that more accommodation will finally give you the genuine connection you crave. But it never does, because genuine connection requires authentic expression, and people-pleasing is the opposite of authentic expression. The roots of people-pleasing usually go back to childhood. Maybe you learned that love was conditional on being good, being quiet, being agreeable. Maybe you discovered that expressing your needs led to anger, disappointment, or withdrawal of affection. Maybe you grew up in an environment where keeping the peace was more important than speaking the truth. Whatever the origin, you developed a survival strategy that prioritizes other people's emotional comfort over your own authentic expression. But what worked as a survival strategy in childhood becomes a success prevention strategy in adulthood. The same behaviors that might have kept you safe as a child now keep you small as an adult. The same patterns that earned you approval when you were young now prevent you from achieving greatness when you're older. Here's the brutal truth about people-pleasing and success. You cannot please your way to the top. Every significant achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of real growth requires you to disappoint someone. It requires you to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It requires you to prioritize your vision over other people's expectations. It requires you to be willing to be misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected by people who want you to stay small. Think about anyone who has achieved something significant. They all have one thing in common. They were willing to disappoint people who wanted them to play it safe. They chose their own approval over everyone else's. They bet on their vision, even when others couldn't see it. They prioritized their growth over other people's comfort. But breaking free from people-pleasing isn't just about being selfish or inconsiderate. It's about recognizing that you have a responsibility to honor your authentic self. You have gifts, talents, perspectives, and contributions that the world needs, but only if you're willing to express them authentically. When you suppress your authentic self to please others, you're not just hurting yourself. You're depriving the world of what you have to offer. The first step in breaking free from people-pleasing is recognizing that you cannot control other people's emotions, and it's not your job to try. Other people's happiness, comfort, and emotional state are their responsibility, not yours. You can be kind, considerate, and respectful without being responsible for everyone's feelings. You can care about others without sacrificing yourself for them. The second step is learning to distinguish between healthy consideration and toxic accommodation. Healthy consideration means being aware of how your actions affect others and choosing to be respectful and kind when possible. Toxic accommodation means sacrificing your authentic self, your goals, or your well-being to avoid any possibility of disappointing or upsetting someone else. The third step is developing what I call strategic selfishness. This isn't about being cruel or inconsiderate. It's about recognizing that you must prioritize your own growth, health, and authentic expression if you want to show up as the best version of yourself for others. It's about understanding that you cannot give what you do not have, and you cannot have what you do not prioritize. Strategic selfishness means saying no to requests that don't align with your priorities. Even if saying no makes someone uncomfortable, it means expressing your authentic opinions, even if they differ from what others want to hear. It means pursuing your goals with intensity, even if your dedication makes others feel insecure about their own lack of commitment. The fourth step is building your tolerance for disapproval. Most people-pleasers have an extremely low tolerance for any form of disapproval, criticism, or conflict. They will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid making anyone upset, which means they live their entire lives within the narrow boundaries of what everyone else finds acceptable. But here's what you need to understand. Disapproval is not dangerous. Criticism is not catastrophic. Conflict is not the end of the world. These are just uncomfortable emotions. And emotions are temporary. The discomfort of disappointing someone passes, but the regret of not living authentically lasts forever. Building your tolerance for disapproval is like building any other muscle. You start small and gradually increase the intensity. You practice expressing minor preferences that might not align with others. You practice saying no to small requests. You practice sharing opinions that might be unpopular. Each time you survive the discomfort of disapproval, you build confidence in your ability to handle it. The fifth step is surrounding yourself with people who support your authentic expression rather than rewarding your people-pleasing. This might mean distancing yourself from relationships that only work when you're suppressing yourself. It might mean finding new communities that appreciate your genuine perspectives and contributions. It might mean being alone for a while as you transition from false connections to authentic ones. Breaking free from people-pleasing is not easy, but it is essential. Every day that you continue to sacrifice your authentic self for other people's comfort is a day that you move further away from your potential. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, you teach yourself that you are not worthy of love as you really are. But when you finally break free from the people-pleasing prison, when you start living from your authentic self rather than your accommodating self, everything changes. You attract people who appreciate the real you. You pursue goals that actually matter to you. You make decisions that align with your values rather than everyone else's expectations. You stop living someone else's life and start living your own. Chapter 6. Building unshakable internal validation systems that make you immune to criticism. You have been living your entire life as an emotional hostage to other people's opinions, and it's time to break free. Every criticism that devastates you, every piece of praise that makes you feel high, every sideways glance that makes you question yourself, is proof that you have outsourced your self-worth to people who have no business determining your value. But what if I told you that you could become completely immune to criticism while simultaneously becoming more open to genuine feedback? What if you could build an internal validation system so strong that other people's opinions become interesting data points rather than emotional earthquakes? This isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. This is about developing what psychologists call internal locus of evaluation. The ability to judge your own worth based on your own standards rather than external approval. When you have strong internal validation, you become emotionally invincible. Criticism can't destroy you because your sense of worth doesn't depend on other people's approval. Praise can't intoxicate you because you're not addicted to external validation. You become stable, centered, and unshakable, regardless of what anyone else thinks about you. But building internal validation isn't just about mindset. It requires a systematic approach to rewiring your emotional responses and rebuilding your relationship with yourself. The first component of building unshakable internal validation is developing what I call the internal scorecard system. This means creating your own metrics for success, progress, and worth that are completely independent of external recognition or approval. Most people measure their worth using other people's scorecards. They feel successful when others acknowledge their achievements. They feel valuable when others express appreciation. They feel confident when others give them compliments. But this external scorecard makes them emotionally dependent on things they cannot control. Other people's opinions are unreliable, inconsistent, and often have nothing to do with actual reality. Your internal scorecard system is based on metrics that you control completely. Did I act in alignment with my values today? Did I make progress toward my goals? Did I treat myself with respect and kindness? Did I learn something new about myself? Did I face a fear or overcome a challenge? These are the questions that determine your worth, not whether someone else noticed or approved. The second component is developing emotional independence through self-compassion. Most people are incredibly harsh with themselves, using internal criticism as motivation and beating themselves up for every mistake or shortcoming. But this internal harshness makes you desperate for external validation as relief from your own self-attack. You seek praise from others because you can't give it to yourself. You need approval from others because you constantly disapprove of yourself. Building internal validation requires learning to be your own best friend, your own biggest supporter, your own most compassionate ally. This doesn't mean becoming delusional about your flaws or avoiding self-improvement. It means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would give to someone you love who was struggling with the same challenges. Self-compassion has three components: self-kindness instead of self-judgment, common humanity instead of isolation, and mindfulness instead of over-identification. Self-kindness means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend who was going through difficulty. Common humanity means recognizing that struggle, failure, and imperfection are part of the human experience, not evidence that you're uniquely flawed. Mindfulness means observing your thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them. When you develop genuine self-compassion, you become less dependent on external validation because you're no longer desperately seeking relief from internal criticism. You can acknowledge your mistakes without your self-worth collapsing. You can recognize your flaws without feeling worthless. You can face challenges without needing others to reassure you that you're capable. The third component is building evidence-based self-confidence. Most people base their confidence on how they feel in the moment or what others think about them. But feelings are unreliable, and other people's opinions are often inaccurate. Evidence-based self-confidence is built on documented proof of your capabilities, growth, and achievements. This means keeping a detailed record of your progress, your wins, your growth, and your capabilities, not for others to see, but for you to remember when doubt creeps in. When someone criticizes you, or when you start questioning yourself, you have concrete evidence of your abilities and progress that no one can take away from you. Your evidence file should include challenges you've overcome, skills you've developed, goals you've achieved, positive feedback from credible sources, times you've acted courageously, moments when you've helped others, instances of personal growth, and examples of your unique strengths and abilities. This isn't about ego or arrogance. It's about having an accurate, balanced view of your capabilities based on real evidence rather than distorted perceptions. The fourth component is developing selective receptivity to feedback. This doesn't mean ignoring all criticism or dismissing all feedback. It means becoming highly selective about whose opinions you allow to influence your self-perception. Not all feedback is created equal. Not all critics are worth listening to. Not all praise is meaningful. Selective receptivity means evaluating feedback based on three criteria: the credibility of the source, the accuracy of the information, and the helpfulness of the insight. Credible sources are people who have achieved what you want to achieve, who understand your field or situation, who care about your growth, and who have demonstrated good judgment. Accurate information is specific, actionable, and based on observable behavior rather than character attacks or generalizations. Helpful insights move you closer to your goals rather than just making you feel bad or good. When feedback meets all three criteria, you listen carefully and integrate what serves you. When feedback fails these tests, you acknowledge it politely, but don't let it affect your self-perception. This isn't about being defensive or closed-minded. It's about being strategic and protective of your mental and emotional energy. The fifth component is practicing controlled exposure to disapproval. Just like building physical immunity through controlled exposure to germs, you can build emotional immunity through controlled exposure to criticism and disapproval. This doesn't mean seeking out harsh criticism or putting yourself in unnecessarily difficult situations. It means gradually expanding your comfort zone around disapproval so it loses its power over you. Start by expressing minor preferences that might not align with others. Share opinions that might be slightly unpopular. Make choices that prioritize your needs, even if others might be disappointed. Each time you survive the discomfort of disapproval without your world ending, you build evidence that disapproval isn't dangerous. The goal isn't to become callous or insensitive. The goal is to become free from the emotional tyranny of other people's opinions, so you can make decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. When you're no longer afraid of disapproval, you become capable of taking the risks necessary for extraordinary achievement. Building unshakable internal validation is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself because it affects every area of your life. When you're not dependent on external approval, you make better decisions. You take bigger risks. You speak your truth. You pursue your authentic goals. You become the person you are meant to be, rather than the person others want you to be. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens consistently when you commit to the process. Every day that you practice internal validation, you become a little more free from the emotional prison of other people's opinions. Every day that you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you become a little more stable and centered. Every day that you build evidence of your capabilities, you become a little more confident and unshakable. Chapter 7. The Energy Protection Protocol that shields you from emotional vampires. Your energy is being stolen every single day, and you don't even realize it's happening. Every conversation with someone who drains you, every interaction with someone who dumps their problems on you, every relationship where you give more than you receive is siphoning away the life force you need to build the person you want to become. You are surrounded by energy vampires, people who unconsciously or consciously feed off your emotional, mental, and spiritual energy, leaving you depleted, exhausted, and unable to focus on your own growth. But here's what most people don't understand about energy vampires. They're not evil people with malicious intent. They're often people you care about, people you love, people who seem to need your help. They might be family members who constantly complain about their problems but never take action to solve them. They might be friends who only call when they need something but are never available when you need support. They might be colleagues who dump their stress and negativity on you every day. The problem isn't that these people are inherently bad. The problem is that you haven't learned to protect your energy. You haven't established boundaries that preserve your emotional and mental resources for your own growth and well-being. You've been taught that being a good person means being available to everyone, helping everyone, supporting everyone, regardless of the cost to yourself. But this is a lie that keeps you weak, depleted, and unable to reach your potential. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help others if you haven't helped yourself first. You cannot be strong for everyone else if you allow your own strength to be constantly drained. The energy protection protocol isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about being strategic with your most valuable resource, your life force energy. The first element of the energy protection protocol is energy awareness. Most people go through their entire lives completely unconscious of their energy levels and what affects them. They don't notice that certain people consistently leave them feeling drained. They don't recognize that certain environments sap their vitality. They don't realize that certain activities energize them while others deplete them. Energy awareness means paying conscious attention to how you feel before, during, and after interactions with different people. It means noticing which environments make you feel alive and which ones make you feel heavy. It means tracking which activities give you energy and which ones take energy away. This isn't about judging people or situations as good or bad. It's about gathering data so you can make informed decisions about how to spend your energy. Start by conducting an energy audit of your relationships. After every significant interaction, ask yourself, do I feel more energized or more drained? Did this person give to the conversation or just take from it? Did I leave feeling inspired and uplifted? Or did I leave feeling heavy and depleted? Keep track of these patterns over time, and you'll start to see clear distinctions between people who add to your energy and people who subtract from it. The second element is boundary architecture. This means creating clear, non-negotiable boundaries that protect your energy from being constantly drained by others. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're filters that determine what you allow into your emotional and mental space and what you don't. Energy boundaries include time boundaries that limit how much time you spend with energy drains, topic boundaries that prevent certain conversations from dominating your interactions, emotional boundaries that prevent you from taking on other people's feelings as your own, physical boundaries that protect your personal space and comfort, digital boundaries that control when and how people can access you through technology. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean or uncaring. It's about being responsible for your own well-being so you can show up as the best version of yourself. When you protect your energy, you actually have more to give to the people and causes that truly matter to you. The third element is the emotional firewall technique. This is a mental and emotional strategy that prevents other people's emotions from contaminating your internal state. Energy vampires are often people who are constantly in emotional chaos, and they unconsciously try to regulate their emotions by spreading them to others. They share their anxiety until you feel anxious. They express their anger until you feel agitated. They communicate their despair until you feel hopeless. The emotional firewall technique involves consciously separating your emotions from other people's emotions. Before entering any interaction, especially with known energy drains, you consciously remind yourself, their emotions are their emotions, not mine. Their problems are their problems, not mine. Their chaos is their chaos, not mine. I can be compassionate without absorbing their emotional state. During the interaction, you practice what psychologists call emotional differentiation. You acknowledge their feelings without making them your feelings. You offer support without taking responsibility for their emotional state. You maintain your center while allowing them to express theirs. This isn't about being cold or disconnected. It's about maintaining healthy emotional boundaries so you can actually be helpful rather than just becoming another person drowning in their chaos. The fourth element is strategic unavailability. This means being intentionally unavailable for energy-draining interactions so you can be available for energy-giving activities. Most people are available to everyone all the time, which means they're constantly interrupted, constantly responding to other people's needs, constantly giving their energy away to whoever demands it loudest. Strategic unavailability means creating protected time for your own growth, your own goals, your own restoration. This might mean turning off your phone during certain hours. It might mean not responding to messages immediately. It might mean saying no to social invitations that don't serve your energy or goals. It might mean being less accessible to people who consistently drain your energy. This isn't about being rude or irresponsible. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are finite resources that must be managed strategically. When you're strategically unavailable for energy drains, you become available for energy gains. You have time to pursue activities that restore you. You have energy to invest in relationships that support your growth. You have mental space to focus on your own development. The fifth element is energy replenishment protocols. Protecting your energy from being drained is only half the equation. The other half is actively replenishing your energy through activities, relationships, and environments that restore and energize you. Most people are experts at giving energy away, but novices at getting energy back. Energy replenishment is highly individual, but there are some universal principles. Physical activities that challenge your body often replenish mental and emotional energy. Creative activities that engage your imagination can restore energy that's been depleted by routine or stress. Social activities with people who inspire and support you can replenish energy that's been drained by difficult relationships. Solitude and reflection can restore energy that's been scattered by constant external demands. The key is to be as intentional about energy replenishment as you are about energy protection. Schedule activities that restore you. Prioritize relationships that energize you. Create environments that inspire you. Make energy replenishment a non-negotiable part of your daily and weekly routine. The sixth element is the energy investment strategy. This means being highly selective about where you invest your emotional, mental, and physical energy. Just like financial investments, energy investments should be made based on expected returns. Some people, projects, and activities will give you a positive energy return. Others will be energy neutral. Still, others will consistently drain more energy than they provide. The energy investment strategy involves regularly evaluating your energy investments and making strategic adjustments. If a relationship consistently drains more energy than it provides, you need to either change the dynamic or limit your investment. If a project or activity doesn't align with your goals or values, you need to eliminate it or minimize your involvement. If an environment consistently depletes your energy, you need to change it or limit your exposure to it. This doesn't mean you only invest energy in things that immediately benefit you. It means you're strategic about how you spend your energy, so you have enough left over to pursue your most important goals and maintain your own well-being. When you protect and strategically invest your energy, you become capable of sustained high performance instead of constant depletion and recovery. Remember, your energy is your life force. It's what you use to create, to grow, to achieve, to contribute. When you allow it to be constantly drained by energy vampires, you rob yourself of the capacity to become who you're meant to be. But when you protect, replenish, and strategically invest your energy, you become unstoppable. Chapter 8. The Complete Physical and Mental Reconstruction Blueprint. Your body and mind are not separate entities. They are one integrated system, and when one is neglected, the other suffers. Right now, you might be trying to rebuild your mental and emotional life while ignoring the physical foundation that supports everything else. Or you might be focusing on physical health while neglecting the mental frameworks that determine how you think, feel, and behave. But true reconstruction requires a systematic approach to upgrading both your physical and mental systems simultaneously. This isn't about becoming a fitness fanatic or a meditation guru. This is about recognizing that your body is the vehicle for your consciousness and your mind is the operating system for your life. When either one is functioning below optimal levels, everything else suffers. When both are operating at peak performance, you become capable of achievements that seem impossible from your current state. The physical reconstruction blueprint begins with understanding that your body is constantly rebuilding itself. Every cell in your body is replaced multiple times throughout your life. This means that the body you have today is literally not the same body you had a year ago. You have the power to influence this rebuilding process through the choices you make every single day about what you put in your body, how you move your body, and how you treat your body. The first pillar of physical reconstruction is nutritional intelligence. This isn't about following the latest diet trend or restricting yourself to the point of misery. This is about understanding that food is information for your body. Every meal you eat is sending signals to your cells about how to function. When you consistently eat processed foods, sugar, and chemicals, you're programming your body for inflammation, fatigue, and disease. When you consistently eat whole foods, quality proteins, and nutrients, you're programming your body for energy, clarity, and vitality. Nutritional intelligence means eating for performance rather than just pleasure. It means choosing foods that support your goals rather than just satisfying your cravings. It means understanding that what you eat affects not just your physical health, but your mental clarity, emotional stability, and cognitive performance. The foundation of nutritional intelligence is eliminating the foods that create inflammation and brain fog. Processed foods, refined sugars, artificial chemicals, and excessive caffeine. The next step is emphasizing the foods that support optimal function. Lean proteins that provide the building blocks for neurotransmitters, healthy fats that support brain function, complex carbohydrates that provide steady energy, and micronutrients that support cellular function. But nutritional intelligence goes beyond just what you eat. It includes when you eat, how much you eat, and how you eat. Intermittent fasting can improve cellular repair and mental clarity. Proper portion control prevents the energy crashes that come from overeating. Mindful eating improves digestion and nutrient absorption while reducing stress. The second pillar is movement mastery. Your body was designed to move, but modern life has created a sedentary existence that weakens your physical foundation and impairs your mental function. Movement mastery isn't about becoming an elite athlete. It's about using movement as a tool for physical and mental optimization. Movement mastery has 4 components. Cardiovascular conditioning that improves blood flow to the brain and increases energy production. Strength training that builds physical resilience and mental toughness. Flexibility work that reduces tension and improves recovery. And daily movement that counteracts the effects of sedentary behavior. Cardiovascular exercise isn't just about physical fitness. It's about brain health. When you engage in regular cardio exercise, you increase the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that supports the growth of new brain cells and protects existing ones. You improve blood flow to the brain, which enhances cognitive function. You increase the production of endorphins and other mood-regulating chemicals. Strength training isn't just about building muscle. It's about building mental resilience. When you regularly challenge your body with resistance training, you develop the mental toughness to push through discomfort and achieve difficult goals. You learn to embrace challenge rather than avoid it. You build confidence in your ability to overcome obstacles. Flexibility and recovery work isn't just about preventing injury. It's about managing stress and improving sleep quality. Stretching, yoga, and other recovery activities activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes rest, recovery, and mental clarity. The third pillar is sleep optimization. Sleep isn't a luxury or a sign of laziness. It's a biological necessity for physical and mental reconstruction. During sleep, your body repairs damaged tissues, consolidates memories, and produces hormones necessary for growth and recovery. When you consistently get poor quality or insufficient sleep, you impair every aspect of your physical and mental function. Sleep optimization involves creating consistent sleep and wake times that align with your natural circadian rhythms, creating an environment that supports deep, restorative sleep, eliminating habits and substances that interfere with sleep quality, and developing bedtime routines that prepare your body and mind for rest. This means avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed, because blue light suppresses melatonin production. It means keeping your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet to support deep sleep. It means avoiding caffeine, alcohol, and large meals close to bedtime. It means developing relaxing bedtime rituals that signal to your body that it's time to rest. The mental reconstruction blueprint focuses on upgrading the software that runs your life. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and mental frameworks. Just like physical reconstruction, mental reconstruction requires systematic attention to the inputs and processes that shape your mental state. The first pillar of mental reconstruction is cognitive hygiene. This means being as careful about what you put in your mind as you are about what you put in your body. Your brain is constantly processing information, and the quality of that information affects the quality of your thinking. When you constantly consume negative news, toxic social media, and low-quality entertainment, you're programming your mind for negativity, distraction, and mental weakness. Cognitive hygiene involves being highly selective about the information you consume, prioritizing inputs that educate, inspire, and challenge you to grow, limiting exposure to information that promotes fear, negativity, or distraction, and regularly engaging in activities that strengthen your mental faculties. This means curating your social media feeds to include only content that supports your growth. It means reading books that challenge your thinking and expand your knowledge. It means listening to podcasts and watching videos that educate and inspire rather than just entertain. It means having conversations with people who stimulate your mind rather than drain your energy. The second pillar is mental training through deliberate practice. Just like physical muscles, mental muscles need to be exercised regularly to stay strong. Mental training involves practicing specific cognitive skills like focus, memory, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Meditation is one of the most powerful forms of mental training because it develops your ability to focus your attention, observe your thoughts without being controlled by them, and remain calm under pressure. But mental training also includes reading challenging material that expands your thinking, learning new skills that create new neural pathways, and engaging in activities that require sustained mental effort. The third pillar is belief system reconstruction. Your beliefs are the operating system of your mind. They determine what you think is possible, what you think you deserve, and what actions you think are worth taking. When you have limiting beliefs, you limit your potential. When you have empowering beliefs, you expand your potential. Belief system reconstruction involves identifying beliefs that limit your potential, examining the evidence for and against these beliefs, and consciously choosing beliefs that support your growth and goals. This isn't about positive thinking or denying reality. It's about choosing beliefs that are both accurate and empowering. The integration of physical and mental reconstruction creates a compound effect that transforms every aspect of your life. When your body is strong and healthy, your mind functions better. When your mind is clear and focused, you make better decisions about your physical health. When both systems are optimized, you become capable of sustained high performance in every area of your life. Chapter 9. Mastering the internal resistance that sabotages your progress. There is a force inside you that is more dangerous than any external enemy, more destructive than any criticism, and more limiting than any circumstance. This force has been sabotaging your progress since the day you decided to change, and it will continue to sabotage your progress until you learn to recognize it, understand it, and master it. This force is called internal resistance, and it is the reason why most people start strong but fade quickly, why they have great intentions but poor follow-through, why they know what to do but don't do what they know. Internal resistance isn't weakness or lack of willpower. It's a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism that your mind uses to keep you safe from perceived threats. The problem is that your mind perceives growth, change, and improvement as threats to your survival. Your subconscious is wired to keep you in familiar territory, even if that territory is limiting, painful, or self-destructive. It would rather keep you safe and small than allow you to risk failure, rejection, or the unknown consequences of becoming more than you currently are. This is why change feels so difficult, even when you want it desperately. This is why you procrastinate on the very activities that would improve your life. This is why you find yourself making excuses, creating distractions, and engaging in self-sabotage just when you're starting to make progress. Your conscious mind wants to change, but your subconscious mind is fighting to keep everything the same. Understanding internal resistance is the key to overcoming it. When you recognize resistance as a natural psychological process rather than evidence of your inadequacy, you can work with it instead of being defeated by it. When you understand the specific forms that resistance takes, you can anticipate and neutralize them before they derail your progress. The first form of internal resistance is comfort zone gravitational pull. Your comfort zone isn't just a mental concept, it's a neurological reality. Your brain has created neural pathways for your current behaviors, thoughts, and emotional patterns. These pathways are like grooves in your brain that make familiar patterns easy and automatic. When you try to change, you're fighting against the gravitational pull of these established pathways. Comfort zone gravitational pull manifests as the constant urge to return to old patterns. You start a new workout routine, but you find yourself making excuses to skip sessions. You begin a new morning routine, but you find yourself sleeping in and returning to old habits. You start eating healthier, but you find yourself craving and returning to old foods. This isn't lack of willpower, it's neurological momentum. The key to overcoming comfort zone gravitational pull is creating new neural pathways through consistent repetition while simultaneously weakening old pathways through conscious avoidance. Every time you choose the new behavior over the old behavior, you strengthen the new pathway and weaken the old one. But this process takes time, and during the transition period, you must expect and prepare for the gravitational pull toward familiar patterns. The second form of internal resistance is identity protection syndrome. Your subconscious mind has a clear picture of who you are, and it will fight to maintain that identity even if it's limiting or self-destructive. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, your mind will resist evidence that contradicts this identity. If you see yourself as someone who isn't good with money, your mind will sabotage your financial progress. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't deserve success, your mind will find ways to undermine your achievements. Identity protection syndrome manifests as self-sabotage that occurs just as you're starting to succeed. You make progress toward your goals, but then you engage in behaviors that undo that progress. You start to experience success, but then you find ways to sabotage it. You begin to receive recognition, but then you do something to damage your reputation. This isn't conscious self-destruction, it's unconscious identity protection. The solution to identity protection syndrome is identity evolution through consistent action. Instead of trying to change your identity through thinking or affirmations alone, you change your identity through behavior. You act as the person you want to become until your subconscious accepts this new identity as real. Every time you act in alignment with your desired identity, you provide evidence that contradicts your old self-concept. The third form of internal resistance is perfectionism paralysis. This is your mind's strategy to prevent you from taking action by setting impossible standards that guarantee failure or inaction. Your mind tells you that if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. If you can't guarantee success, you shouldn't take the risk. If you can't control all the variables, you shouldn't start. Perfectionism paralysis manifests as endless preparation without execution, constant research without implementation, and analysis paralysis that prevents decision-making. You spend months planning the perfect workout routine but never actually work out. You research the perfect business strategy but never actually start the business. You design the perfect life plan but never actually take the first step. The antidote to perfectionism paralysis is embracing what I call strategic imperfection. This means taking action before you feel ready, starting before you have all the answers, and improving as you go, rather than waiting for perfect conditions. Strategic imperfection recognizes that progress is more important than perfection, and that done is better than perfect. The fourth form of internal resistance is fear-based forecasting. This is your mind's tendency to imagine all the ways that change could go wrong, all the negative consequences that could result from growth, and all the reasons why staying the same is safer than taking risks. Your mind creates elaborate disaster scenarios to justify avoiding action. Fear-based forecasting manifests as catastrophic thinking about potential outcomes, obsessive focus on everything that could go wrong, and paralysis caused by imaginary future problems. You want to start a business, but your mind focuses on all the ways it could fail. You want to improve your health, but your mind imagines all the ways you could get injured. You want to build relationships, but your mind focuses on all the ways you could be rejected. The solution to fear-based forecasting is reality-based assessment combined with worst-case scenario planning. Instead of letting your mind run wild with imaginary disasters, you conduct a realistic assessment of actual risks and create concrete plans for handling challenging situations. This satisfies your mind's need for safety while allowing you to take intelligent action. The fifth form of internal resistance is energy conservation mode. Your brain is wired to conserve energy whenever possible, and change requires energy. Your subconscious mind will resist activities that require sustained mental or physical effort, especially when the benefits aren't immediately obvious. Energy conservation mode manifests as sudden fatigue when you try to work on important goals, lack of motivation for activities that require effort, and preference for passive entertainment over active development. You feel energized when you're avoiding important tasks, but you feel tired when you try to work on meaningful projects. The solution to energy conservation mode is energy management through strategic rest and recovery, combined with momentum building through small wins. You work with your natural energy cycles rather than against them, and you build momentum through consistent small actions rather than sporadic, large efforts. Mastering internal resistance requires understanding that it's not the enemy, it's a misguided protector. Your resistance is trying to keep you safe, but its definition of safety is keeping you small. When you recognize resistance as a natural part of the growth process, you can work with it instead of being defeated by it. When you understand the specific forms resistance takes, you can anticipate and neutralize them before they sabotage your progress. The key is developing what I call resistance resilience, the ability to feel resistance without being stopped by it. You acknowledge the resistance, understand why it's there, and then take action anyway. You don't wait for the resistance to disappear, because it never will completely. You learn to act in the presence of resistance, and eventually, the new behaviors become automatic and the resistance fades. Chapter 10. The Advanced Self-Focus Strategies that separate winners from everyone else. You've learned the fundamentals of rebuilding yourself through self-focus. But now it's time to understand the advanced strategies that separate the top 1% from everyone else. These aren't just additional techniques to add to your toolkit. These are the sophisticated psychological and strategic approaches that create exponential rather than linear growth. These are the methods that transform self-focus from a personal development practice into a competitive advantage that makes you virtually unstoppable. The first advanced strategy is what I call systematic self-optimization. While most people approach self-improvement randomly, trying different techniques without any overall strategy, advanced practitioners approach self-development like engineers approach system design. They understand that you are a complex system with multiple interconnected components, and optimizing the system requires understanding how each component affects every other component. Systematic self-optimization begins with comprehensive life auditing. This means examining every area of your life with the precision of a scientist studying a complex organism. You analyze your physical health, mental clarity, emotional stability, relationships, career, finances, environment, habits, beliefs, and goals not as separate elements but as interconnected parts of a whole system. The key insight is that optimization in one area creates cascading improvements in other areas, while problems in one area create cascading problems throughout the system. When you improve your physical health, your mental clarity improves, which improves your decision-making, which improves your career performance, which improves your financial situation, which reduces stress, which improves your relationships. Advanced practitioners identify the leverage points in their personal system, the areas where small improvements create disproportionately large results across multiple domains. They focus their energy on these high-leverage improvements rather than spreading their efforts across many low-impact activities. The second advanced strategy is temporal self-management. This goes far beyond traditional time management to include managing your relationship with time itself. Advanced practitioners understand that you exist across multiple time horizons simultaneously. Your immediate moment, your daily rhythms, your weekly cycles, your monthly patterns, your yearly trajectories, and your lifetime arc. Temporal self-management involves aligning your actions across all time horizons so that your immediate choices support your daily goals. Your daily goals support your weekly objectives. Your weekly objectives support your monthly targets. Your monthly targets support your yearly vision. And your yearly vision supports your lifetime mission. This requires developing what I call temporal intelligence, the ability to make decisions that optimize for multiple time horizons simultaneously. You're not just asking what you want to do right now. You're asking what the best version of yourself would do right now if they were thinking about the impact on tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, and their entire life. Advanced practitioners also understand and optimize their personal time rhythms. They identify when they have peak energy for different types of activities and structure their lives to align high-priority activities with high-energy periods. They understand their natural cycles of focus and rest and work with these cycles rather than against them. The third advanced strategy is identity architecture. While most people let their identity form accidentally through experiences and external influences, advanced practitioners consciously design and build their identity like an architect designs a building. They understand that identity is not fixed, it's constructed, and they take conscious control of the construction process. Identity architecture involves 3 levels: core identity, which includes your fundamental values, beliefs, and sense of purpose. Functional identity, which includes the roles you play and the capabilities you develop. And expressive identity, which includes how you present yourself to the world and how others perceive you. Advanced practitioners design each level intentionally. They choose their values based on what will create the life they want, rather than just accepting inherited values. They develop capabilities that align with their goals, rather than just developing whatever opportunities present themselves. They craft their personal brand and reputation strategically, rather than just hoping others see them positively. The key to identity architecture is understanding that you can be multiple versions of yourself and consciously choosing which version to express in different contexts. You have a professional identity, a personal identity, a social identity, and a private identity. Advanced practitioners ensure that all versions are authentic, but optimized for their specific context and goals. The fourth advanced strategy is adversity utilization. While most people see challenges, setbacks, and difficulties as obstacles to overcome, advanced practitioners see them as raw materials for building strength, wisdom, and capability. They understand that adversity is not something that happens to you. It's something you can use to forge yourself into a stronger version of who you are. Adversity utilization involves three processes. Extraction, which means identifying the lessons, skills, and insights available in every difficult experience. Integration, which means incorporating these lessons into your identity and decision-making frameworks. And transformation, which means using adversity as fuel for becoming more than you were before the challenge. Advanced practitioners don't just survive difficult experiences, they metabolize them. They extract every possible benefit from challenges and use those benefits to accelerate their growth. They understand that the same adversity that breaks some people can be used to build unshakable strength in others. And the difference is how you process and utilize the experience. This doesn't mean seeking out unnecessary difficulty or romanticizing suffering. It means approaching inevitable challenges with a growth mindset that asks, how can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, and more capable? What skills can I develop through this challenge that I couldn't develop any other way? How can I use this adversity to build the exact capabilities I need for my goals? The fifth advanced strategy is influence multiplication. Advanced practitioners understand that true self-focus eventually extends beyond the self to include strategic influence over their environment, relationships, and circumstances. They recognize that you cannot optimize yourself in isolation because you exist within systems of relationships and environments that constantly influence your development. Influence multiplication involves consciously designing your environment to support your growth, building relationships that accelerate your development, and developing the ability to influence others in ways that create mutual benefit. This isn't about manipulation or control. It's about understanding that your environment shapes you and taking conscious control of that shaping process. Advanced practitioners curate their physical environment to support their goals, removing elements that promote negative behaviors and adding elements that promote positive behaviors. They strategically build relationships with people who inspire, challenge, and support their growth, while minimizing relationships that drain their energy or reinforce limiting patterns. They also develop the ability to influence others positively, understanding that the best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. They become valuable to others through their knowledge, skills, and insights, which creates a network of relationships that supports their continued growth and success. The sixth advanced strategy is anti-fragility development. This concept, popularized by Nassim Taleb, goes beyond resilience to describe systems that actually get stronger from stress and chaos rather than just surviving them. Advanced practitioners don't just build the ability to handle challenges, they build the ability to thrive because of challenges. Anti-fragility development involves exposing yourself to controlled stress and variability in order to build adaptive capacity, creating redundancy in your skills and resources so that setbacks in one area don't devastate your entire system, and building optionality so that you can benefit from unexpected opportunities and changes. This means deliberately putting yourself in slightly uncomfortable situations that require growth. It means developing multiple income streams, multiple skill sets, and multiple social networks so that you're not dependent on any single source of security. It means positioning yourself to benefit from change and uncertainty rather than just protecting yourself from them. These advanced strategies require a level of self-awareness, strategic thinking, and long-term commitment that most people never develop. But when you master them, you don't just improve your life incrementally, you transform it exponentially. You become someone who doesn't just achieve goals, but consistently exceeds your own expectations. You become someone who doesn't just adapt to change, but thrives because of change. The difference between average self-focus and advanced self-focus is the difference between self-improvement and self-mastery. When you implement these strategies consistently, you don't just become a better version of yourself. You become a fundamentally different kind of person. You become someone who operates at a level that seems impossible from where you are now, but becomes inevitable when you apply these principles systematically over time. Chapter 11. The momentum multiplication system that compounds your growth exponentially. Most people experience growth in waves. They make progress for a while, then plateau. They break through to a new level, then stagnate. They achieve some goals, then lose momentum. This cycle of progress and regression keeps them trapped in a pattern of starting over, making some headway, falling back, and starting over again. But there is a way to break free from this cycle and create momentum that builds on itself, compounds over time, and accelerates your growth exponentially rather than linearly. The secret is understanding that momentum is not just about doing more or working harder. Momentum is about creating systems and strategies that make each success easier to achieve than the last. It's about building a foundation where your wins create more wins, where your progress creates more progress, where your growth creates more growth. This is the difference between people who achieve temporary success and people who create lasting transformation. The momentum multiplication system is based on 5 core principles that work together to create compound growth. When you understand and implement these principles, you don't just improve gradually over time. You improve at an accelerating rate that creates exponential transformation. The first principle is progression stacking. This means structuring your goals and activities so that each achievement builds directly on the previous achievement, creating a stack of capabilities that make the next level easier to reach. Most people set random, disconnected goals that don't reinforce each other. They want to get fit and learn a new skill and improve their relationships and advance their career. But they treat these as separate objectives that compete for their time and energy. Progression stacking involves identifying the core capabilities that support multiple areas of your life and building those capabilities in a sequence that makes each subsequent goal easier to achieve. For example, developing discipline through a morning routine creates the foundation for fitness goals. Achieving fitness goals builds the confidence and energy needed for career advancement. Career advancement provides the resources and credibility needed for relationship improvements. When you stack your progressions this way, each win doesn't just achieve a specific goal. It creates the foundation for multiple future wins. You're not just checking items off a list. You're building a system of interconnected capabilities that make continued growth inevitable. The second principle is compound skill development. Instead of learning random skills based on immediate interests or opportunities, you strategically develop skills that multiply the value of other skills. Some skills are force multipliers that enhance everything else you do. Communication skills make you better at every relationship and every professional situation. Critical thinking skills improve your decision-making in every area of life. Emotional regulation skills enhance your performance in every challenging situation. Compound skill development means identifying the meta skills that improve your ability to develop other skills and prioritizing those meta skills in your learning strategy. When you develop the skill of learning itself, every other skill becomes easier to acquire. When you develop the skill of habit formation, every positive behavior becomes easier to implement. When you develop the skill of mental focus, every cognitive task becomes more efficient. The key is understanding that some skills have linear benefits, while others have exponential benefits. Learning to play a specific instrument benefits you only when you're playing that instrument. Learning to learn quickly benefits you every time you need to acquire any new knowledge or skill. Learning to regulate your emotions benefits you in every situation where you experience stress, challenge, or pressure. The third principle is success momentum capturing. Most people achieve a win and then immediately move on to the next challenge without fully leveraging the momentum from their success. They lose the psychological and practical benefits that could be used to accelerate their next achievement. Success momentum capturing involves maximizing the psychological, social, and practical leverage that comes from each win. Psychologically, success creates confidence, which makes you more willing to take risks and more likely to persist through challenges. But this confidence boost is temporary unless you consciously reinforce it. Success momentum capturing means immediately using the confidence from one win to tackle the next challenge, while the positive emotions are still strong. Socially, success creates credibility and opportunities. People notice when you achieve something meaningful, and this attention opens doors that weren't available before. Success momentum capturing means strategically leveraging this increased credibility to create new opportunities, build valuable relationships, and gain access to resources that can accelerate your next goals. Practically, success often creates resources, money, skills, connections, knowledge, or tools that can be used to achieve future goals more easily. Success momentum capturing means immediately identifying and deploying these resources toward your next objectives, rather than letting them sit unused or get absorbed into lifestyle inflation. The fourth principle is failure fast-forward processing. Most people see failure as momentum-stopping events that require recovery time and emotional processing before they can move forward. But advanced practitioners understand that failure is actually compressed learning that can accelerate growth if processed correctly. The key is developing the ability to extract maximum value from failures quickly and use that value to improve your next attempt immediately. Failure fast-forward processing involves 3 steps. Rapid analysis, which means quickly identifying the specific factors that contributed to the failure without getting lost in emotional reactions. Insight extraction, which means isolating the lessons, skills, and knowledge that can be gained from the experience. And immediate implementation, which means applying these insights to your next attempt as quickly as possible. When you master failure fast-forward processing, failures become momentum accelerators rather than momentum killers. Each setback provides information that makes your next attempt more likely to succeed. Each mistake builds capabilities that make future challenges easier to handle. Each failure becomes a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. The 5th principle is environment momentum design. Your environment constantly influences your behavior, either supporting your growth or hindering it. Most people adapt themselves to their environment, but advanced practitioners design their environment to support their momentum. This includes your physical environment, your social environment, your information environment, and your daily routine environment. Environment momentum design means structuring your surroundings so that positive behaviors are easy and automatic, while negative behaviors are difficult and inconvenient. This might mean organizing your home to support healthy habits, surrounding yourself with people who encourage your growth, curating your information consumption to include only content that supports your goals, and designing daily routines that build momentum rather than drain energy. The key insight is that willpower is finite, but environmental design is infinite. When your environment supports your goals, you don't have to rely on motivation or willpower to maintain momentum. The structure of your life naturally guides you toward positive behaviors and away from negative ones. When you implement all 5 principles of the momentum multiplication system, something extraordinary happens. Your growth stops being a struggle and starts being a natural flow. Each day builds on the previous day. Each week builds on the previous week. Each month builds on the previous month. You develop what I call unstoppable momentum, a state where continued growth becomes easier than stagnation. This doesn't mean your path becomes effortless or that you never face challenges. It means that challenges become opportunities to build strength. Setbacks become sources of valuable information, and obstacles become stepping stones to higher levels of capability. You develop a momentum that is self-sustaining and self-amplifying. The momentum multiplication system transforms the entire experience of personal development. Instead of constantly pushing yourself uphill, you create conditions where growth pulls you forward. Instead of fighting against resistance, you build momentum that overwhelms resistance. Instead of struggling to maintain progress, you create systems where progress maintains itself. Chapter 12. Creating your personal operating system that runs your life automatically. Your life is currently running on an operating system that you didn't consciously design. This system is made up of unconscious habits, inherited beliefs, emotional patterns, and reactive behaviors that determine how you respond to every situation. Most of this operating system was installed during childhood and adolescence without your conscious input or consent. It's a collection of programming from your family, culture, education, and early experiences that now runs your life automatically, whether it serves your current goals or not. But just like you can upgrade the operating system on your computer to make it faster, more efficient, and more capable, You can consciously design and install a personal operating system that automatically guides you toward your goals, supports your values, and creates the life you actually want rather than the life your unconscious programming creates by default. Your personal operating system consists of 4 core components. Your default settings, which are the automatic responses and behaviors that run without conscious thought. Your decision-making protocols, which are the frameworks you use to evaluate options and make choices. Your stress response programs, which determine how you handle challenges, pressure, and unexpected situations, and your growth and adaptation routines, which automatically update and improve your system over time. The first component, default settings, includes all the unconscious behaviors that make up the majority of your daily experience. These are the habits, routines, and automatic responses that require no conscious decision-making. Most people's default settings were programmed randomly through repetition and circumstance rather than being consciously designed to support their goals. Designing your default settings means identifying the key behaviors and responses that have the biggest impact on your life and consciously programming them to support your objectives. This includes your morning routine, which sets the tone for your entire day. Your work habits, which determine your professional effectiveness. Your evening routine, which affects your recovery and preparation for the next day. Your health behaviors, which impact your energy and longevity. And your relationship patterns, which determine the quality of your connections with others. The key to effective default settings is making your ideal behaviors automatic, so they don't require willpower or motivation. When positive behaviors become default settings, you perform them consistently regardless of how you feel or what else is happening in your life. You remove the decision-making burden from activities that should happen regularly and save your mental energy for higher-level strategic thinking. The second component, decision-making protocols, are the systematic approaches you use to evaluate options and make choices. Most people make decisions reactively, based on emotions, immediate desires, or external pressure. But advanced practitioners develop systematic protocols that ensure their decisions consistently align with their long-term goals and values. Effective decision-making protocols include criteria for evaluating opportunities based on alignment with your goals, potential for growth, and long-term consequences, rather than just immediate appeal. They include frameworks for prioritizing when you have multiple good options. They include methods for gathering necessary information without falling into analysis paralysis. They include processes for making difficult decisions when there's no clearly right answer. The goal is to eliminate decision fatigue and ensure consistency in your choices. When you have clear protocols for making decisions, you don't have to reinvent your decision-making process every time you face a choice. You simply apply your predetermined framework and move forward with confidence. The third component, stress response programs, determines how you automatically respond to challenges, pressure, setbacks, and unexpected situations. Most people's stress response programs were developed during childhood and are designed for survival rather than success. They might include fight, flight, or freeze responses that worked in dangerous situations but are counterproductive in modern challenges. Designing your stress response programs means consciously choosing how you want to respond to different types of stress and pressure. This includes developing automatic responses that help you stay calm and focused under pressure, systematic approaches for dealing with setbacks and failures that extract lessons and maintain momentum, protocols for handling criticism and conflict that protect your emotional stability while remaining open to feedback, and routines for managing overwhelming situations that break problems down into manageable components. When you have well-designed stress response programs, stress becomes a performance enhancer rather than a performance inhibitor. Challenges become opportunities to demonstrate your capabilities rather than threats to your well-being. Pressure becomes fuel for achievement rather than a source of anxiety. The fourth component, growth and adaptation routines, ensures that your personal operating system continuously improves over time rather than becoming stagnant. These are the systematic processes that allow you to learn from experience, update your approaches based on new information, and evolve your system as your goals and circumstances change. Growth and adaptation routines include regular review processes that assess what's working and what needs improvement. Learning systems that ensure you're continuously acquiring new knowledge and skills, feedback mechanisms that help you identify blind spots and areas for development, and update protocols that modify your other systems based on new insights and changing circumstances. The key is building improvement into your system so that growth happens automatically rather than only when you're motivated to change. Your personal operating system should be self-improving, constantly becoming more effective and better aligned with your evolving goals. Installing your personal operating system requires 3 phases. Assessment, where you examine your current unconscious programming and identify what needs to change. Design, where you consciously create new defaults, protocols, and routines that support your goals. And implementation, where you gradually replace old programming with new programming through consistent practice. The assessment phase involves conducting a thorough audit of your current automatic behaviors, decision-making patterns, stress responses, and growth habits. You identify which aspects of your current operating system serve you and which aspects limit you. This requires honest self-observation and possibly feedback from others who can help you see your blind spots. The design phase involves consciously creating new programming that aligns with your goals and values. This isn't about copying someone else's system. It's about designing approaches that work for your unique personality, circumstances, and objectives. You create specific protocols for common situations and general frameworks for handling unusual circumstances. The implementation phase involves gradually installing your new programming through consistent practice until it becomes automatic. This requires patience because you're literally rewiring neural pathways and creating new habits. The old programming will resist change, so you need systematic approaches for reinforcing new patterns until they become stronger than old patterns. When your personal operating system is fully installed and running, your life operates with a level of efficiency and effectiveness that seems effortless to others. You automatically make choices that support your goals. You instinctively respond to challenges in ways that create growth rather than setbacks. You naturally engage in behaviors that build the life you want rather than the life you inherited. This doesn't mean your life becomes predictable or mechanical. It means that the foundation of your life is solid and automatically supports your conscious goals and values. You have more mental and emotional energy available for creativity, innovation, and high-level strategic thinking. Because the basics of your life are handled automatically by systems you've consciously designed, your personal operating system becomes your competitive advantage, while others are constantly fighting against their unconscious programming, making reactive decisions, and struggling with inconsistent behaviors, you're operating from a foundation of conscious design that automatically guides you towards success. Chapter 13. The elite mental models that rewire your thinking for unstoppable success. The difference between ordinary thinking and extraordinary thinking isn't intelligence or education. It's the quality of the mental models you use to understand and navigate reality. Mental models are thinking frameworks that determine how you interpret information, make decisions, solve problems, and predict outcomes. Most people operate with mental models they absorbed unconsciously from their environment without ever examining whether these models actually serve their goals. But elite performers in every field consciously develop and refine mental models that give them massive advantages in thinking quality and decision-making effectiveness. They see patterns that others miss, anticipate consequences that others ignore, and identify opportunities that others overlook because they've equipped their minds with superior thinking frameworks. The first elite mental model is systems thinking versus linear thinking. Most people think linearly, assuming that causes and effects are directly connected and that problems have simple, straightforward solutions. But reality operates as complex systems where causes and effects are separated by time and space, where small changes can have large consequences, and where the obvious solution often creates unintended consequences that make the original problem worse. Systems thinking recognizes that everything is connected to everything else through networks of relationships and feedback loops. When you think systemically, you look for leverage points where small changes create large improvements. You anticipate second and third-order consequences of your actions. You understand that sustainable change requires addressing root causes rather than just symptoms. In personal development, systems thinking means understanding that different areas of your life affect each other. Improving your physical health improves your mental clarity, which improves your decision-making, which improves your career performance, which improves your financial situation, which reduces stress, which improves your relationships. When you think systemically, you focus on changes that create positive cascades throughout your entire life system. The second elite mental model is probabilistic thinking versus binary thinking. Most people think in absolutes. Things are either good or bad, right or wrong, possible or impossible. But reality operates in probabilities and degrees. Elite thinkers understand that most outcomes exist on a spectrum, and that the goal isn't to predict exactly what will happen, but to position yourself to benefit from the most likely scenarios while protecting yourself from the most dangerous ones. Probabilistic thinking involves thinking in terms of likelihood rather than certainty, base rates rather than specific instances, and ranges rather than point estimates. When making decisions, you consider multiple possible outcomes and their relative probabilities rather than just hoping for the best case or planning for the worst case. In personal development, probabilistic thinking means understanding that success isn't guaranteed, but can be made highly probable through the right actions, mindsets, and strategies. You focus on increasing the probability of positive outcomes while decreasing the probability of negative outcomes rather than trying to guarantee specific results. The third elite mental model is inversion thinking. While most people focus on what they want to achieve, elite thinkers also spend significant time thinking about what they want to avoid. Inversion means approaching problems backward, starting with the worst possible outcomes and working backward to identify what could cause those outcomes, then designing strategies to prevent them. Inversion thinking is incredibly powerful because it helps you identify and eliminate the behaviors, decisions, and situations that most commonly lead to failure. It's often easier to identify what not to do than to identify exactly what to do. By eliminating the most common causes of failure, you dramatically increase your probability of success, even without having a perfect plan. In personal development, inversion thinking means asking questions like, what would guarantee that I fail to achieve my goals? What behaviors would definitely keep me stuck where I am? What decisions would certainly make my life worse? Then you systematically eliminate these failure patterns from your life. The fourth elite mental model is second-order thinking. Most people consider only the immediate consequences of their actions, but elite thinkers consider the consequences of the consequences. They think not just about what will happen if they take a specific action, but what will happen after that, and what will happen after that. Second-order thinking helps you avoid actions that feel good in the short term but create problems in the long term. It also helps you choose actions that might be difficult in the short term but create significant benefits over time. The ability to think beyond immediate consequences is one of the most important factors that separates successful people from unsuccessful people. In personal development, second-order thinking means considering not just whether a habit or behavior will give you immediate benefits, but whether it will serve you over time. It means thinking about the long-term consequences of your choices on your character, your relationships, your health, and your future opportunities. The fifth elite mental model is anti-fragility versus fragility. Most people try to build lives that won't be harmed by negative events. But elite thinkers build lives that actually get stronger from stress, challenges, and unexpected events. They understand that trying to eliminate all risk and uncertainty often makes you more vulnerable to catastrophic failure when something unexpected happens. Anti-fragility means building redundancy into your systems so that failure in one area doesn't destroy everything. It means developing capabilities that are enhanced by challenge rather than weakened by it. It means positioning yourself to benefit from volatility and uncertainty rather than just surviving them. In personal development, anti-fragility means building multiple sources of income, multiple skill sets, multiple social networks, and multiple ways of finding meaning and fulfillment. It means developing mental and emotional resilience that actually grows stronger under pressure. It means treating challenges as opportunities to build capabilities rather than just obstacles to overcome. The sixth elite mental model is compound interest thinking. Most people understand compound interest in financial terms, but elite thinkers apply this principle to every area of life. They understand that small, consistent improvements compound over time to create exponential results. They focus on building capabilities and systems that become more valuable over time rather than just achieving immediate outcomes. Compound interest thinking involves prioritizing investments in learning, relationships, health, and character that may not pay off immediately but create exponential benefits over time. It means choosing delayed gratification when the long-term benefits significantly outweigh the short-term costs. In personal development, compound interest thinking means focusing on small daily improvements that compound over time, rather than looking for dramatic transformations. It means building habits, skills, and relationships that become more valuable the longer you maintain them. The seventh elite mental model is optionality thinking. Instead of trying to predict the future and betting everything on one scenario. Elite thinkers create multiple options and position themselves to benefit from various possible outcomes. They understand that the future is uncertain and that the best strategy is often to maximize your options rather than to make perfect predictions. Optionality thinking involves building capabilities, relationships, and resources that create multiple possible paths forward. It means avoiding decisions that lock you into one specific future, while creating decisions that open up multiple possibilities. In personal development, optionality thinking means developing multiple skills that could be valuable in various scenarios. Building relationships with people in different industries and fields, and maintaining financial and lifestyle flexibility that allows you to adapt to changing circumstances. When you consistently apply these elite mental models, your thinking quality improves dramatically. You see opportunities that others miss. You avoid problems that others stumble into. You make decisions that compound positively over time, while others make decisions that limit their future options. These mental models become automatic thinking tools that upgrade every decision you make and every problem you solve. They transform you from someone who reacts to circumstances into someone who anticipates possibilities and positions themselves strategically for long-term success. Chapter 14. Building unbreakable discipline that becomes your natural operating mode. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. That's willpower. And willpower is finite, exhausting, and unreliable. True discipline is about restructuring your life so that the behaviors that serve your goals become your natural, automatic responses to daily situations. It's about building systems and mindsets that make positive behaviors easier than negative behaviors, making discipline feel effortless rather than forced. Most people think of discipline as suffering, as denying themselves pleasure, as constantly fighting against their natural desires. But this understanding of discipline is exactly why most people fail to develop it consistently. When you see discipline as punishment, your mind will resist it. When you see discipline as suffering, you'll avoid it. When you see discipline as unnatural, you'll constantly fight against it. Unbreakable discipline is built on a completely different foundation. It's based on understanding that discipline is actually freedom, that structure creates spontaneity, and that constraints enable creativity. When you have strong discipline in the fundamental areas of your life, you have more freedom to be creative, spontaneous, and flexible in other areas. When your basics are handled automatically, you have more mental and emotional energy available for higher-level pursuits. The first pillar of unbreakable discipline is identity-based habits rather than outcome-based habits. Most people try to build discipline by focusing on what they want to achieve. They want to lose weight, so they force themselves to exercise. They want to be successful, so they force themselves to work harder. They want to be organized, so they force themselves to clean up. But identity-based habits work differently. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" you ask, "Who do I want to become?" Then you build habits that are consistent with that identity. You don't exercise because you want to lose weight. You exercise because you're the type of person who prioritizes health. You don't work hard because you want success. You work strategically because you're the type of person who creates value. You don't clean up because you want organization. You maintain order because you're the type of person who respects their environment. When your habits are aligned with your identity, they feel natural rather than forced. You're not fighting against yourself. You're expressing yourself. You're not denying your nature. You're becoming your nature. This eliminates the internal resistance that makes discipline feel difficult. The second pillar is environmental design that supports disciplined behavior automatically. Your environment constantly influences your behavior, either making discipline easier or harder. Most people try to build discipline while living in environments that encourage undisciplined behavior, then wonder why they struggle with consistency. Environmental design means structuring your physical, social, and information environments to make positive behaviors automatic and negative behaviors difficult. This includes removing temptations and obstacles that make discipline harder, adding cues and triggers that prompt disciplined behavior, surrounding yourself with people who model and encourage disciplined behavior, and creating systems that make tracking and maintaining your discipline effortless. When your environment supports your discipline, you don't have to rely on willpower to make good choices. The structure of your life naturally guides you toward positive behaviors. Your discipline becomes a product of smart design rather than constant effort. The third pillar is micro-discipline that builds macro-discipline. Most people try to build discipline by taking on huge challenges that require enormous willpower and perfect execution. When they inevitably fail, they conclude that they lack discipline. But discipline is built through small, consistent actions that prove to yourself that you can keep commitments to yourself. Microdiscipline means starting with commitments so small that failure is almost impossible, then gradually increasing the difficulty as your discipline muscle strengthens. You might start by committing to drink 1 glass of water every morning, then build to a full morning routine. You might start by committing to write 1 sentence every day, then build to a full writing practice. The key insight is that discipline is transferable. When you prove to yourself that you can keep small commitments consistently, you build confidence in your ability to keep larger commitments. Each successful micro-discipline experience strengthens your identity as someone who follows through on their commitments. The fourth pillar is systems-based discipline rather than motivation-based discipline. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Systems are structural and permanent. When you rely on motivation to drive your discipline, you're dependent on feeling like doing the right thing. When you rely on systems, you do the right thing regardless of how you feel. Systems-based discipline means creating structures, routines, and processes that make disciplined behavior automatic. This includes daily routines that eliminate decision fatigue, tracking systems that provide feedback and accountability, and recovery protocols that maintain your discipline during difficult periods. The goal is to make discipline a function of your system rather than your feelings. When your system is strong enough, you can maintain disciplined behavior even when you're tired, stressed, or unmotivated. The fifth pillar is discipline, stacking that creates compound discipline. Instead of treating different areas of discipline as separate challenges, you stack them so that success in one area makes success in other areas easier. You build discipline in one domain, then use that momentum to build discipline in related domains. For example, you might start by building discipline in your morning routine, which creates momentum for building discipline in your work habits, which creates momentum for building discipline in your health behaviors, which creates momentum for building discipline in your evening routine. Each area of discipline reinforces and strengthens the others. Discipline. Stacking leverages the fact that discipline is a transferable skill. When you strengthen your discipline in any area, you strengthen your overall capacity for self-control and follow-through. When you prove to yourself that you can be disciplined in one domain, you build confidence in your ability to be disciplined in other domains. The sixth pillar is sustainable intensity, rather than burnout intensity. Many people try to build discipline through extreme measures that can't be maintained over time. They go from zero discipline to maximum discipline overnight, burn out within a few weeks, and then conclude that they're incapable of sustained discipline. Sustainable intensity means finding the level of discipline that you can maintain consistently over long periods rather than the maximum level you can sustain for short periods. It's better to maintain moderate discipline for years than extreme discipline for weeks. This requires honest assessment of your current capacity and gradual expansion of that capacity over time. You build discipline like you build physical fitness, through progressive overload that challenges you without overwhelming you. The seventh pillar is discipline recovery protocols that help you bounce back quickly from lapses. Everyone breaks their discipline occasionally. The difference between people who develop unbreakable discipline and people who give up is how quickly they recover from lapses. Discipline recovery protocols include predetermined responses to common failure scenarios, quick restart procedures that get you back on track immediately, and learning systems that extract lessons from lapses to prevent similar failures in the future. The key is treating lapses as temporary setbacks rather than permanent failures. When you have strong recovery protocols, a single mistake doesn't destroy your momentum or your identity as a disciplined person. When you build discipline on these 7 pillars, it stops feeling like discipline and starts feeling like your natural way of being. You become someone who naturally makes choices that serve your long-term goals. You become someone who automatically follows through on commitments. You become someone who instinctively chooses the harder right over the easier wrong. This level of discipline becomes your competitive advantage in every area of life. While others are constantly fighting internal resistance and struggling with consistency, you're operating from a foundation of reliable self-control that makes sustained high performance possible. Unbreakable discipline isn't about becoming a robot or eliminating all spontaneity from your life. It's about building such a strong foundation of positive behaviors that you have maximum freedom to be creative, flexible, and spontaneous within that structure. When your basics are handled automatically through discipline, everything else becomes possible. Chapter 15. The complete life architecture that ensures your rebuilt self lasts forever. You have learned how to rebuild yourself, but now comes the most critical challenge: making sure your transformation lasts. The graveyard of personal development is filled with people who experienced dramatic breakthroughs, made significant changes, and built new habits, only to slowly drift back to their old patterns over time. They rebuilt themselves temporarily, but they didn't create the architecture necessary to maintain their transformation permanently. Complete life architecture is about designing and building a life structure that makes your rebuilt self sustainable for decades, not just months. It's about creating systems, relationships, environments, and mindsets that continuously reinforce your growth rather than allowing gradual decay back to your previous state. It's about becoming someone who gets stronger over time rather than someone who peaks early and then declines. The first component of complete life architecture is structural integrity, which means building your life on foundations that won't crack under pressure. Most people build their transformation on motivation, willpower, and temporary enthusiasm. But these foundations are inherently unstable. When life gets difficult, when stress increases, when motivation fades, these weak foundations crumble and people revert to old patterns. Structural integrity means building your transformation on systems, habits, environment design, and identity rather than feelings and motivation. It means creating structures that work regardless of how you feel, what's happening around you, or what challenges you're facing. It means building redundancy into your system so that if one support fails, others maintain your progress. This includes financial structures that support your goals, rather than creating stress that derails your progress. Career structures that align with your values, rather than forcing you to compromise your integrity. Relationship structures that encourage your growth, rather than pulling you back to old patterns. Health structures that maintain your physical and mental foundation regardless of external pressures. The second component is continuous evolution programming. Most people think of personal development as reaching a destination, achieving certain goals, and then maintaining that level. But this maintenance mindset is actually what causes regression. When you stop growing, you start dying. When you stop evolving, you start stagnating. When you stop challenging yourself, you start declining. Continuous evolution programming means building growth into your life structure so that evolution becomes automatic rather than optional. This includes learning systems that ensure you're constantly acquiring new knowledge and skills, challenge systems that regularly push you outside your comfort zone, feedback systems that help you identify areas for improvement, and adaptation systems that help you adjust to changing circumstances. The key insight is that the goal isn't to reach a final state of perfection. It's to become someone who continuously evolves toward greater capabilities, wisdom, and effectiveness. Your rebuilt self should be just the beginning of a lifelong journey of becoming more than you currently are. The third component is legacy building, that gives your transformation meaning beyond yourself. When your growth serves only yourself, it's easy to lose motivation when you achieve your personal goals. But when your transformation serves something larger than yourself, it becomes self-sustaining because it's connected to purpose that transcends personal satisfaction. Legacy building means identifying how your rebuilt self can contribute to others, create positive impact, and leave the world better than you found it. This might involve mentoring others who are going through similar transformation, building businesses or organizations that serve important causes, creating art or content that inspires others, or simply modeling what's possible for people in your sphere of influence. When your personal transformation becomes part of a larger mission, maintaining your growth becomes not just personally important, but morally important. You're not just building yourself for yourself. You're building yourself to serve others and contribute to something meaningful. The fourth component is relationship architecture that surrounds you with people who support and accelerate your continued growth. Your relationships are either assets that help you maintain and expand your transformation or liabilities that slowly pull you back toward your old patterns. Most people underestimate how much their social environment affects their long-term development. Relationship architecture involves consciously designing your social environment to include people who inspire you, challenge you, support you, and hold you accountable to your highest standards. This includes mentors who have achieved what you want to achieve, peers who are on similar growth journeys, and people you mentor who remind you of how far you've come. It also involves limiting or eliminating relationships that consistently encourage regression, drama, or mediocrity. This doesn't mean abandoning people who are struggling, but it does mean being strategic about how much time and energy you invest in relationships that drain rather than fuel your growth.